he slapped me. Right after his mother whispered something in his ear. No warning, no preamble, just a slap that seemed to erase all the love that had ever existed. What would you do if the person who promised to protect you was the first to hurt you? This is the story of how a wife discovers the harsh truth hidden behind her mother-in-law's gentle words and smiles. Of how an ordinary woman turns pain into strength with just a small item falling from her bag. My name is Claire Evans, 34 years old. I used to put others before myself until I had no choice but to save myself. This story takes place in a peaceful coastal town in Georgia, where the ocean waves gently lap, but storms rage right in the family kitchen. If you've ever felt lonely in your own home, stay with this video until the end. Don't forget to leave a comment if you've experienced something similar, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories that will make you feel you're not alone. I don't remember exactly what my first feeling was when I met my mother-in-law. Maybe it was cold, maybe awkward, but definitely not fear. That feeling only came later, when I began to realize that she didn't need to raise her voice to make me shrink back. Just a sentence, a glance, a whisper. My name is Claire Evans, and I'm 34. I live in a small coastal town in Georgia, where the ocean waves roll gently onto the sandy beaches like a hesitant song, and every morning the smell of cinnamon rolls wafts from the coffee shop down the street. I'm a kindergarten teacher at a public school 10 minutes from home. It's not glamorous, but it's cozy. I love reading, growing lavender, and baking bread on Sunday mornings. My husband, Ryan Evans, is a remote programmer. We met at a mutual friends party and started dating when I was 28. Ryan isn't the most striking type of guy, but he has soft gray eyes and a voice deep enough to make you believe that everything will be okay as long as he's around. After a year of dating, we had a small wedding under the string lights in my mom's backyard in mid-April, when the rose bushes were just starting to bloom. Our married life started like in a book. Ryan got up early to make coffee. I cooked breakfast. He worked in a small office with a window facing the sea. I rode my bike to teach. Every night. We had dinner together. Sometimes watched movies. Sometimes just sat next to each other with a book. We didn't need to talk much. I used to think that was the definition of peace. Things began to change. One October evening, when Ryan came home later than usual, his face was tense, his eyes uncertain and yet determined. He set his bag on the kitchen counter, pulled out a chair, and twisted his wedding ring around on his finger, as if searching for the right words. "Mom wants to come live with us for a while," he said, his voice low. "She's still not used to being alone after Dad died." I was stunned for a moment. My father-in-law had been dead for almost 3 months. I knew Helen, my mother-in-law, to be a difficult but reserved person. She lived in Savannah, nearly 3 hours away, in an old house with a wide porch and 2 old oak trees in the front yard. I had never been close to her, but I had never had any conflicts. Our relationship was, if you could call it that, polite and cool. How long, I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She said a few weeks, just until she gets the house sold. I nodded. I wasn't heartless. A widow, living alone, needed someone to lean on. I also believed that Ryan would never let anyone come between us. I was wrong. Helen arrived 3 days later. She stepped out of a black SUV, wearing a knee-length gray dress, a neatly belted trench coat, her hair pulled back into a bun, and a questioning look in her eyes. I opened the door, smiling politely. She nodded. "Claire, did you water the flowers this afternoon? It's much wetter here than Savannah." The roots rot easily. The first thing she said to me was a correction. I smiled slightly and did not reply. At first, I tried to make her feel welcome. I cooked her favorite meals, set up her room with new sheets, and made conversation during meals. Her answers were brief, but polite. Ryan tried to keep things light. I told myself, this is only temporary. But then little things started to show up. My spice cabinet was organized by frequency of use. She changed it to alphabetical order. "Organization saves time," she said. The bookshelves in the living room, which I had carefully arranged by color, were reorganized by genre and author. I asked Ryan, and he just smiled and said, "Mom, I'm used to it. Don't worry about it. I care." One afternoon, I came home early from work. The kitchen smelled of chicken with mushroom sauce. I walked in and saw Helen standing with her back to me, wearing the little floral apron I always used when I cooked. Ryan sat at the table, his eyes shining like a child. Mom made my favorite. He laughed. "Even the salad is just like she used to make when I was a kid." I stood there, feeling like I had been left out of a family portrait that I was supposed to have painted. I didn't cook that night. I didn't eat. I sat on the couch in my bedroom, folding laundry, when I opened Ryan's dirty laundry basket. A piece of paper fell out from the middle of his white shirt. Ryan always likes his shirts folded lengthwise, not in half. "Mom," I slumped to the floor. It was as if someone had pulled the rug out from under me. Everything I had ever done, everything I had ever tried to preserve was being replaced, piece by piece, from the spice jars to the way I folded my clothes, from the dinners we had together to the private stories only we knew. I didn't see it coming. Helen didn't attack me with harsh words. She didn't scream. She just adjusted. Gradually, quietly, like a trickle of water wearing away at a stone. That night, I turned to the first page of the leather notebook Ryan had given me for my birthday last year. The first page was blank. I wrote a line, "I'm still here, but no one can see me anymore." I used to think that to be replaced, you had to be openly betrayed. An affair, a secret text message, a strange woman's name appearing in your husband's phone. But for me, the replacement didn't come from some strange third party. It came from the woman who called my husband son. Ever since Helen moved in, I began to feel that the house I once loved so much was becoming a stranger day by day. At first, it was just a few small changes, but as time went on, I realized more and more. Everything that belonged to me was being stripped from every corner of this house, as if it had never existed. And the cruelest thing, Ryan didn't see anything wrong. One morning, I went into the kitchen earlier than usual because I needed to prepare materials for class. The kitchen was already occupied. Helen, her hair neatly combed as usual, was making coffee. "I got up early to make Ryan's," she said, without turning around. "He's used to my coffee stronger." I smiled awkwardly. "He likes my coffee. I replied, so quietly I wasn't sure she could hear. Then, breakfast. I used to make toast with eggs and avocado, which Ryan said made him feel loved every morning. But this morning, there were cornflakes, sausage rolls, and fresh orange juice, just as Grandma had described the traditional breakfast at their old house. Claire cooks well, but it's too Western, Helen said as Ryan entered the kitchen. I'm worried about your stomach being as weak as your father's. It won't be able to handle such strange food. Ryan smiled. You know me, Mom. I sat there, between them, silently eating the tortilla I didn't want. It felt as if someone was silently turning the pages of Ryan's past to force it onto the present, where he and I were supposed to be writing our own chapter. After breakfast, I opened the closet in my room to get my coat. My favorite burgundy blazer was missing. I looked around, and there it was, folded neatly in the top drawer, where I never put things. I asked Ryan if he noticed anything strange. He shrugged. Maybe Mom cleaned your room. Clean. That's what started to haunt me. Clean meant moving things around in a way that she saw fit. Clean meant taking away my control of the space I had created with my own hands. Worse. Ryan didn't notice any signs that anything was wrong. On the contrary, he seemed relieved that his mother was in charge. Then there was the menu. I wasn't allowed to cook anymore, at least not for dinner. Every time I walked into the kitchen at 5, Helen was there, wearing the apron I used to wear, rummaging through the fridge, getting ingredients. If I asked her gently, "Do you need any help?" Mom, she'd shake her head. "No. I've worked all day. Let me take care of it." But I don't need to be left to my mother. I need to be part of my family. I started eating less dinner, talking less, laughing less, and sleeping later. There were nights when I sat in the bathroom for hours just to avoid hearing Helen and Ryan talking in the living room talks I had nothing to say, because they were memories they shared from a life that didn't include me. I didn't tell anyone, not because I didn't want to, but because I was ashamed. Who would be jealous of their mother-in-law? Who would feel hurt because their husband was close to their own mother? I felt petty, unreasonable, and invisible. One day, I got out of school early and stopped by the supermarket to buy some chia seeds for oatmeal. I was about to leave when I remembered I had forgotten to buy flour. When I returned to the counter, I saw Helen standing there, and next to her was a familiar older woman. She was the wife of my next-door neighbor, Joe. I was about to step forward to say hello when I suddenly stopped when I heard Helen say, "That girl isn't suitable for Ryan. She's weak and doesn't know how to take care of a man. Ryan needs someone like me by his side. If I hadn't come in time, that house would be a mess right now." The other woman smiled, hesitantly. "Well, each daughter-in-law has her own style." Helen shrugged. "I'm just being honest. Ryan's emotional. He doesn't see who's dragging him down." I stood frozen between the two stalls. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt my chest. I didn't know if I backed away or turned away or how I got home. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I didn't talk. I went into my room, closed the door, and wrote, "I am not the first woman to live in my house." A few days later, it was my birthday. Ryan didn't remember. Helen had prepared a family dinner of honey-roasted chicken, to which I was mildly allergic. When I mentioned it, she said, "Oh, I forgot. Have a salad." I ate my salad and tried to hold back my tears. After dinner, I received an envelope from Ryan. Inside was a coupon for a sporting goods store I never went to. There was no cake, no candles, no notes. I nodded my thanks, then went into the room and wrote again, "I disappear every day, and no one notices." Then one night, I lay in bed, eyes wide open, Ryan already asleep. Helen had just adjusted the living room curtains to thicker ones, to block out the morning sun. It's good for Ryan's skin. I thought, this is the moment I have to choose. Either I shut up and let myself disappear completely, or I have to find a way to reclaim my voice. The next morning, I decided to make breakfast. I got up early and made buttered toast, soft-boiled eggs, and lattes the way Ryan liked them before his mother showed up. I set everything out on the table. Helen walked into the kitchen as I poured the last cup. I did, but it's okay. I smiled. I wanted to cook today. It's my birthday. She stood still for a few seconds. Then she nodded. Yes. Ryan stepped down. He looked at the table. He looked at me. He smiled softly, vaguely, as if praising a student for doing his homework right. "Okay," he said, and sat down. I sat down too, but my heart was cold. It wasn't a compliment, it was a permission. That night, I ordered a pregnancy test. I was 2 weeks late, but I couldn't believe it. I felt a twinge of hope and a twinge of fear. If I was actually carrying a living being, it would change everything. I didn't know what to say to Ryan. I didn't know how he would react. But I knew one thing for sure if I didn't speak up. Even the child inside me would be swallowed up by this silence. I had imagined the moment I would tell Ryan about the baby many times. I had imagined it would be on a warm evening, by candlelight, with our hands clasped and eyes filled with wonder. I had imagined him holding me tight, kissing my forehead, whispering, "I'll take care of both of ye." I thought, if there was one thing that could save our failing marriage, it would be this baby. But life is not what it seems. That evening, I chose to wear the same floor-length purple dress I had worn on Ryan's first trip to Charleston. I put on some light makeup, tied my hair back, and tried to smile as casually as I could as I left the room. Helen was preparing a roast. I told her I had planned a special dinner. She looked at me for a moment, then quietly retreated into the room. For the first time since she had arrived, she had given me the kitchen space. There was something in her eyes that sent a chill down my spine, like she knew what was coming and was ready to see it fall apart. I set the table, light the candles, play some soft jazz in the background, a playlist Ryan once said made him feel home. Dinner was simple, creamy mushroom pasta, olive oil salad, a little red wine. I put the pregnancy test in my bag, planning to show it to him after we ate. Ryan came downstairs just as I poured the wine. He was wearing a white shirt, his hair still wet. He looked at the table, a little surprised. "Something special," I smiled. "I wanted to surprise you." Helen came out too, sitting at the table uninvited. I hesitated, then nodded and pulled out a chair. "All the more fun," I said, though I felt a twinge of regret. I wanted this moment to be just the two of us. The meal was quiet. I tried to make conversation, asking about Ryan's job, telling him a few funny stories from school. He smiled faintly, nodded, but his eyes never met mine for more than 3 seconds. Helen suddenly put down her glass of wine and looked at Ryan. Do you remember yesterday when I told you about your father? Ryan nodded. Yes. She leaned over and whispered in his ear. I couldn't hear clearly. I could only see her lips move a few words. Then her hand gently placed on her son's shoulder. Ryan nodded, his face suddenly tense, his jaw clenched. Before I could ask anything, he turned to me, his eyes dark. You lied to me, right? I froze. What, you're hiding something from me? Mom says you've been sneaky all week. What are you up to? I opened my mouth before I could react. Ryan suddenly stood up and slammed his hand on the table. Tell me, what are you hiding? Whose baby are you? I was speechless. He shouted, Whose is it? Claire. Before I could answer, before I could breathe, then pop. A fierce slap swept across my left cheek. My vision went dark. My ears rang. The chair I was sitting on fell backwards, and I fell to the floor. Everything was shattered. In an instant, the world I had built with him for 6 years cracked like tempered glass being hit by a hammer. My bag fell with the fall, and in the cold silence that followed the loud crash, a small object rolled out of the bag, a pregnancy test, 2 red lines, clear and unmistakable. Helen looked down at the object. Her eyes blinked. Ryan stood still. I was still on the floor, unable to get up. No one said anything. Only the jazz music continued to play in the background, ironically. Right at the "it had to be you." I slowly pushed myself up into a sitting position. My cheeks burned, my heart pounding. I picked up the test and held it out to Ryan. My hands were shaking, but my eyes were looking straight ahead. This is what I was going to tell you tonight. I didn't tell you sooner, because I was scared. But now I know. I was wrong to believe you even deserved to hear this. Ryan took a step back, his eyes bloodshot. He looked at the test strip, then at me, then back at his mother. Helen, Mom. His voice was hoarse. You said Claire had someone else. You knew she was pregnant. Helen sat there, as straight as a statue. I just said I was worried. I saw him acting strange. I was afraid he had a secret. I didn't say whose child he was. Ryan held his head. Oh my God. I stood up. The blood was still rushing to my face. No more tears, no more fear. Just a chill down my spine. The chill that comes when you realize that the man you once called husband not only failed to protect you, but also raised his hand to strike you down for a mere whisper. I went into my room and got my suitcase. I didn't need much. Just some clothes, underwear, flats, and a copy of the pregnancy test I'd photographed. I placed the pregnancy test on the table, along with a handwritten note. When you find your reason, I will be where the child is safe. I don't look back. If you have ever been hurt by silence, by the person you trusted the most turning their back on you, leave a comment. You deserve to be heard. I don't remember where I drove for the first 10 miles. Everything after that slap felt like a thick fog, painful, cold, unreal. I drove aimlessly through winding coastal roads. The windows cracked open to let in the night wind. I needed it. I needed air to keep from suffocating in the fear curling in my chest. The only thing I know for sure is that I can never go home again. Because that home, the place I once believed was home, has been shattered into pieces with a swing of the hand. And the person who swung the hand was the person who whispered, I will never hurt you. I went to Marcy's house, my best friend from college. We hadn't talked much since we'd both started families, but I knew she'd open the door at any moment. And sure enough, when I knocked on the door just before midnight, her eyes were sleepy, but her arms were open. "Are you okay?" was the first thing she asked. I didn't answer, just held out the pregnancy test. She looked down, then up at my left cheek, where the red mark was still burning. "No," she whispered. "It's not good. You need to stay here as long as you need." We didn't speak again that night. I showered, changed, and lay down on the spare bed in the guest room. The minty lemon scent of Marcy's scented candle filled the air. The baby inside me, the unformed being, was the only thing keeping me from screaming. I had to stay calm, not just for myself, but for her. The next morning, I turned on my phone. There were 3 missed calls from Ryan and 1 text message, "Claire, I'm sorry. Please go home. We need to talk." I turned off the phone. I spent the rest of the day on Marcy's back porch, sipping ginger tea and looking out at the lavender garden she had planted. Every time the wind blew, the scent of the flowers gently touched me, as if to say, "You're still here. You're still alive." I wrote in my notebook, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I don't want to live the same way anymore." 3 days later, Ryan appeared at the door. Marcy said nothing, just nodded slightly and went back inside. I stood at the door, not opening it wide. Ryan looked haggard. His eyes were dark. His stubble was scraggly. He held out a paper bag. Inside were a box of chocolates, prenatal vitamins, and a book called Being a Father from the First Months. "I have no excuse for what I did," he said, his voice choking. "I was wrong. Very wrong. Yeah. I was manipulated by my mother. I didn't listen to you. And I hit you. I was silent. I can't take back that slap." He continued, "But I want a chance to make it right. I want to be with you and the baby." I looked up, my eyes fixed on him. "You didn't lose me because of your mother. You lost me because you chose to believe a whisper over the wife you live with every day. That slap was the last straw." Ryan bowed his head. "I'm not stopping you from being a father," I continued. "But I'm not going back into that house, not while your mother is still there, and not without some serious family therapy." He nodded. "I'll find a place for Mom. I'll go to therapy. Just give me a chance to get it right this time." I didn't answer right away. But at least, for the first time in weeks, I saw his eyes not averting. The next week, Ryan texted regularly. No nagging, no demands, just simple questions. "Have you eaten? Is it sunny today? How's the baby?" He sent me therapy receipts. He sent me pictures of the apartment his mother had moved into more than 10 miles from ours. I haven't decided yet, but I'm keeping my mind open a little. Meanwhile, I started rebuilding myself. I went back to teaching. I asked for a smaller class to lighten my load. I spent my weekends doing prenatal meditation and yoga. Marcy took me shopping for baby clothes. Every time I saw a tiny hat or cream socks, my heart sank. Not because I was sad, but because I knew I would do anything to make sure my child would never grow up in a house filled with whispers and silence like mine. And then, one morning in early February, when the sunlight was just warm enough to filter through the trees behind the window, I received a package. Inside was a handwritten letter. Claire, I will leave my son's life. Not because I won, but because Mom realized Ryan doesn't need Mom like she thought. And you, even though I don't like, you were strong enough to make me see that. Don't thank. Don't forgive. Mom just wants you to know. Your bag, something so small, made me silent for the first time in my life. I took the paper, my hand shaking. Something had fallen out of the envelope. It was an ultrasound, a photocopy from somewhere. I don't know, but it was mine. Helen had seen it. Maybe when I wasn't looking. Maybe when I was asleep. I understand. The pregnancy test that fell out of his pocket that day didn't just shock Ryan. It woke her up, too. And in that moment, I am no longer a passive player in the silent game of power. I had a voice, and without screaming, it was enough to silence everyone. Have you ever been doubted or hurt by a loved one just because of a word from someone else? What made you find your own voice again? Share your story in the comments, because here, every voice deserves to be heard. The baby was born on a spring morning in March, when the cherry blossoms were just beginning to bloom along the highway leading to the hospital. It was a girl. Her eyes were brown, her hair was black, and her tiny hand held my index finger as if she had known me for a long time. I named her Hope, not because I was dreaming of something grand, but because her very presence was a miracle proof that even from the rubble, life can begin. Ryan was at the hospital. He sat outside the delivery room, his eyes red. When the nurse brought Hope out, he held her in his arms, shaking as if he were holding the universe in his arms. No one said much. He and I both understood some apologies don't need to be spoken. They need to be proven by actions, day by day, hour by hour. I didn't go back to my old house after the baby was born. I rented a small apartment in the north of town, just 2 rooms and a balcony overlooking the lake. Every morning I put Hope in her crib in the sun so she could hear the birds singing, see the trees swaying, and know that there was so much tenderness in the world. Ryan visits every weekend. No gifts, no pretense. He changes diapers, makes formula, holds the baby all day without taking his eyes off me. He listens when I give him feedback. He no longer argues or tries to explain. He just learns, quietly and patiently. Do you want us to try again from the beginning? But this time the right way he suggested. I did not answer immediately. I needed to know he had truly changed, not to be the same person again, but to be a new person, a husband who listened, a father who protected, and a man who was not easily swayed by the whispers of the past. A month later, I agreed to let him move into the apartment, but not living together, but scheduled fatherhood. Every day, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., he would come over, play with the kids, do chores, and if Hope was asleep, we'd have a cup of tea together, not as husband and wife, but as 2 people learning to be friends again. I set clear boundaries. No mention of Helen. No decision about Hope was made without consulting me. No word is ever spoken unless it is weighed with respect. Ryan agreed. No complaining, no negotiating. For the first time, he really listened with his heart, not out of guilt. Helen stopped talking to me. She moved to another state to live with her sister. I heard from Ryan that she still checks in on Hope through photos. I don't forbid it, but I can't force myself to forgive. Forgiveness is not about wiping away. It's about putting down the burden to make yourself lighter, then moving on. I returned to teaching after 6 months of maternity leave. The children in my class hugged me so tight I almost cried. A little blonde girl asked, "Are you going to bring your baby to school?" I laughed. "Sure. Someday. Every day I go to work. I leave Hope at home with Marcy or Ryan. I trust, but no longer blindly. I am no longer the woman who wore a purple dress hoping for the perfect dinner and a soothing whisper from her husband. I am the woman who brought a child into this world, alone, the one who survived a slap, not just from the hand, but from the silence of the person she trusted most." One June evening, after Hope had fallen asleep, Ryan sat on the balcony, pouring me his usual cup of herbal tea. "I never knew you were so strong," he said. I replied, "I don't know how strong I am until I have no other choice." He asked me if I wanted to live together again. I looked at him for a long time. Then I shook my head. I don't want to go back to my old life. And I'm not ready for that new life with you. I need time to figure out if I can love you again, without being afraid. He nodded. This time, there was no pain, no anger, just acceptance. I wrote in my diary, "I don't forgive because someone deserves it. I forgive because I don't want to live in pain forever." And I end my story here, not because it is perfect, but because I have learned to continue telling it in my own voice, without letting anyone else whisper it for me. Life doesn't always give us the people who cherish us the way we deserve. Sometimes, the people who hurt us are the ones who promised to protect us. But it is from those cracks that we learn to stand up, reset our boundaries, and build a stronger version of ourselves. The greatest lesson of Claire's story isn't that she forgave or walked away, it's that she chose to listen to her own voice. After so many days of silence, she didn't wait for someone to save her. She became the savior of her own life and of a child from a cycle of nameless trauma. If you ever find yourself in any of these situations, remember you are not alone. Your voice matters. You deserve to be heard. If you found this video to be touching, please share with a woman who needs to hear this today, and leave a comment if you've been on a similar journey as Claire. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the powerful real-life stories in the next video. You are much stronger than you think.